Hi, I'm Kacey.
And I'm Gianni.
I never finished reading the Animorphs books as a kid, and I still haven't as an adult.
And I've never read them.
We can't tell you where we live.
But we can tell you that we want to revisit these books as adults and dive into what we would keep or change if we were to put it on TV.
Two friends, 50-something books. Welcome to morphinbuddies.
And then the music kicks in, and then people are just so ready.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Morphinbuddies with me, your host, Kacey Cisnowski, and Mr. Gianni DeMaia.
Whoa, what up?
Whoa. So, we are going to start out this one. We got another fan mail.
What? I actually don't know this.
Yay! So this is from Sean, a fan.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Sean. So Sean says they just finished their own reread of the series as an adult. Previously, as a preteen, they only ever made it to about the mid-30s and never finished. And when they found out about the digital versions, they wanted to change that. They said, I don't have anyone to talk to about all my thoughts after having finished those, so I was happy to find this podcast. I think it's great. Y'all are funny. Yeah, and I love the overall format for each book's episode. I just caught you at book 10, but I'm going back through the episodes, and I'll be here to write it out with you to the end of the line.
Woo!
Sean,
we love that, Sean.
Sean, we love that. Quick question. So this one I did prepare Gianni with. What would be...
Oh, this is why you sent me this question. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because I wanted you to have a little bit of time to think it over, because I needed a little bit of time. What would you want your main battle morph to be? Personally, I've always wanted to go with something wild like a Komodo dragon. Anyway, keep it up and I'll see you later. Thank you, Sean.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I did think about it, although I don't know if my answer is going to be particularly satisfying to the end.
What is it?
My gut instinct was, and it's just because it just is my favorite animal, is a platypus, and I really want to be a platypus.
That's not a battle animal.
I think no, they are, because they're
they?
like one of the most poisonous aquatic animals.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying, I could put up a little fight.
You could.
You know, and it's a mammal, but it lays eggs, so I think it, just like me, it's a little confusing.
Slap them around with your webbed feet.
Yeah, like, how did this existence come to be? Like, people ask the same thing when they see me, and so I think there's just a kindred spirit. But then they just also are super poisonous. I was watching, there was like some random seared into my brain, like, what was it? Discovery? Is that the one that always had all the nature shows on it?
Yeah,
Discovery. The Discovery Channel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there was like something that was like top 10 most poisonous aquatic animals. Ooh. And I only remember the top two, and it was the platypus at number 2 or number 1. I can't remember the order. But I remember they were the top 2. It was the platypus, and it was a type of jellyfish.
No way.
And look, jellyfish, very cool. I don't have like a lot of like core jellyfish vibe to me.
No. Also,
like, I guess I'm gelatinous in a sense. But
you're
like,
definitely not gelatinous. But like, just trying to imagine you in a battle situation, and you're like, all right, battle morph time, and then you just morph into a jellyfish, where you're just like a wet plastic bag on the ground that just does nothing.
Right. Yeah, I think morphing into a platypus, though, you know.
At least you got the cute feet that go pat, 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 pat on the ground.
Yeah, I would definitely go pitter-patter a lot.
I like that.
I also just love the way they look. They look blind. I don't know if they are blind.
I don't
but
think
that could be problematic.
I don't think they are blind, but they do have tiny eyes.
But they're friggin' adorable.
They are pretty cute.
You ever seen those guys, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those guys.
Adorable.
I'd give them a hug. I'd let them sit on my shoulder.
Yeah, so that was my gut reaction, and then I was like, well, maybe I should have like a more serious like battle morph, but I'm not like.
But I don't want to
have like a lot of. Yeah, I don't have like a lot of like fondness for, because I'm a hipster at heart, right? So I don't. So I don't want to just be like, ooh, elephant.
Or,
like, come on.
tiger.
Like, wait, I'm not. Yeah, give me a. Oh my god, could you imagine if I just took Jinx? That would be actually pretty poetic if I was just like, yeah, tiger is
Hell
what I
yeah.
want. Actually, I know a few things about tigers.
Yeah.
Their saliva, like ours, is antiseptic. That I know. I know that there are certain places in, I believe, India, where they often travel with a mask on the back of their heads.
People
because,
do, not tigers.
Yeah, people. Yeah, sorry, not a tiger. Yeah, just to clarify. Because, yeah, a tiger is more likely to attack when you are not
From behind.
looking.
Also, if you've noticed, tigers have spots on the backs of their ears. So it looks like eyeballs to anything that thinks of attacking him.
Right. Now,
So-
here's another thing that is totally unrelated to everything that we just said.
Go for it.
I was thinking about, I was like, I wish a praying mantis was like a giant thing.
Ew.
Because I would totally choose that. Because I think they are so fun.
Ew. Yeah, they're kind of gross, but
they're
like
so
they're also
gross.
kind of cool.
Yeah, but like also the female species, I'm pretty sure devours the males.
Yep.
Which is just like my life, honestly. So I think that's another one I have a kindred connection to.
Yeah.
So-
very few people know this. You podcast crew won't know this, but Gianni doesn't have a head.
Right. I famously
ripped
got
off.
it torn off by all of my ex-girlfriends.
I famously got it torn off.
Famously. That's what everybody
I love
knows
that.
me for. Yeah, is getting devoured by my ex-girlfriend. No, I think my no, now we're too deep in the weeds. I'm not gonna finish that thought. So yeah, if praying mantises were bigger, that would be my choice. But for the actual and platypi are pretty small as well, but they're not praying mantis size. So it's
No,
like,
they're not.
Yeah, it's like a little cat, like having a little cat size.
Like a lap size.
Yeah, and I figure everybody else that I'm going to be partying with, because I'm assuming we're like a sort of like Dungeons and Dragons like group with a little bit of camaraderie going on. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that everybody else is going to take the bigger, hulkier forms. So
Yeah.
I'll be the support poisoner.
You can like go through their legs and bite their feet, so you poison them, and they don't know until it's too late.
Yeah. What
Smart.
about you? Did you choose your battle morph?
Yeah, I think I would want to be a snow leopard because I think they're very pretty. And
A sneppard?
a sneppard. So actually, fun fact, snow leopards are actually more closely related to tigers than they are actual leopards.
No way. Why?
Yeah, way. I don't know. That's their DNA. Anyway, they also have super powerful hind legs because they usually jump down onto their prey to kill them.
Ooh.
So they'll like hide in the rocks and then they'll leap from the rocks and get them. They're also very quiet when they walk because their feet work like snowshoes. So it's very
but
padded and soft. Yes.
Are they limited to just snowy environments, or do they
No,
go
no.
other
They
places
can
too?
they can be in warmer environments as well. They can shed their fur and all that. They prefer like mountainous climates.
Right.
But they're very good at like scaling walls and jumping on rocks and balancing and that's why actually why one of the reasons their tail is so long is to help them balance when they're on like a precipice of a cliff or climbing up the side of a mountain. And it also keeps them warm at night if it's
Oh, so they're just like
especially cold
pogo
night.
sticking it up a mountain?
Well, they're not quite like Tigger, but yeah, they can like, how like cheetahs when they run, their tails act as like a rudder, so they can change direction really quickly. It's the same thing with snow leopards. Cool.
Wow. Look at
Yeah.
us.
So
Did Sean pick a battle morph?
Sean, you did not pick a battle morph. What the heck,
Oh.
dude?
All right. Well.
Oh wait,
Sean,
wait, no, I lied. I'm so sorry, Sean. Yes, Sean said they would be a Komodo dragon.
Oh, duh. Yes, you did
Yes.
say that.
I forgot- I forgot I said that.
heard that. I heard that through my own ear holes and eyeballs.
And Komodo dragons are also very poisonous with their bite.
Are they really?
Yes,
I mean, I knew
yes, you
they're
can
like
die.
way bigger than you think they are.
Yeah, they're massive, and you can die if you get bitten by one. So don't.
That's another idea I would have. I would be a moose because they are
to
huge.
trample.
Oh man, they're so massive.
Hell
so
yeah.
I guess I would have to see what my supporting cast is doing because I want to balance the group. You know what I mean? I don't
Sure.
want to be like because D&D is no fun if everybody's a barbarian. But
True. But if
you gotta-
everybody's a bard,
right,
You got
if
a boy
everybody's
band.
a bard, then it's a little too fun.
all you do is sing songs. You're like, let's not adventure. Let's stay at home.
So
Let's just up our
stupid.
focus at home. So thank you,
man.
Sean, for that email. Thank you. We're glad you are allowed to join us with your Komodo dragon, with our snow leopard and platypus gang.
Yes.
So thank you for sending that, and we appreciate the kind words. We're glad you think we're funny.
Yes. Thank you so much because no one else does.
So, getting into this book, The Change. This is the Tobias central book where he's a human boy turning into a red-tailed hawk on the cover.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Love.
How did you feel about it?
I like this one quite a bit. This is definitely one of the more serious entries in the series, which I think we've said this before, and it's always good to just reiterate, but I think that the series is just at its best where it really just drives deep into one tone or the other. And this is definitely deep into that, like, similar to, like, The Android, or something along those lines. It's a very dark, angsty, atmospheric from the jump, and then leans further into that through the different themes and events that Tobias is dealing with. He's just naturally a very angsty sort of character, so I think he's kind of like relatable in a sense for I think anyone reading the Animorphs series. Because I'm gonna take a lofty swing here and assume that if you're someone who read this series, you weren't always happy as a kid.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Gianni, that's a bold statement. We got to be careful
Maybe
with those blanket statements.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. That's just my assumption, and so I think that inherently Tobias is just very relatable. He has that sort of wallflower energy. Very much as someone who it was nice to actually get his perspective, considering we haven't gotten his perspective since I think book 3. If you don't count Megamorphs. And it was nice.
I don't think we got his perspective in Megamorphs, did we?
I can't even remember now. But
I don't think we did. I think it was just the main human gang.
Yeah,
which,
you might
what
be
the
wrong.
Fuck?
You might be right.
K.A. Applegate.
I can't really remember, but
I don't think we got his perspective. I think it was just Axe, Marco, Cassie, Jake, Rachel.
But it was definitely neat being like getting to actually see from his perspective that he felt as if he wasn't contributing enough, that he felt like almost, I don't want to say ostracized because it's not like anybody was excluding him from plans,
but like by default, maybe not by default, that's not quite the right word, but like just based on the circumstances, of course he's going to feel a little bit like...
Yeah, the hawk's
left
not
out.
always going to be useful in every single one of these circumstances. And it was nice that Applegate had Tobias acknowledge that, because that was definitely something that I think we had commented on in past books, where it does seem like Tobias is kind of left by the wayside. And I think that this was a really smart way to handle it. So it really showed that even though he has a desire and an effort to want to be more of a contributor to this group, circumstantially it just doesn't always allow for it. And so that inherently undercutting the angst that's already there of here we have this sort of ostracized boy who's kind of on the outskirts in general, not really wanted by his family, that of his family that he has left. And I don't even think they've really acknowledged even where he's gone since. They just are still sort of up in the air on that. And that's the boy that is just now permanently sort of stuck in this hawk form. And it was also nice to kind of get his yearning to be a human again, to have some sort of connection to the group in that way. Because even though they're all dealing with this thing, Tobias is dealing with it in a different way. So that as the template of the tone, there's kind of no other way that this story can go. You know what I mean? Like, there's no other... We can't really have the same, like, yuck, let's have some let's have some fun. Uh-oh, I'm an alligator. Which is fine, because again, I don't mind the series going into super serious. I don't mind it going into super silly. I just like it when it's consistent, and this was definitely consistent all the way through. I think that obviously, we'll get more into it as we get into the actual spoilers of the book itself. But I think that everything to do with the Ellimist in this series, I feel confident in saying, I feel that it is convoluted in a way that does detract, for me personally, from the series as a whole. Because basically...
Like, it kind of feels like an out that you can run to?
It feels like something that's always going to be available as a Deus Ex, let's escape this situation, and the only real relatable circumstance of it is a character acknowledging in the same way that the reader is acknowledging, well, if you could do this, why can't you do X, Y, Z and just save the world and whatever? And basically the answer is like, you'll never know. Like,
we don't interfere.
I'm just reimagining the Ellimist as like Peeves or something. But that's really, I think, unfortunate, because I think that science fiction is at its best when you can follow the train of thought. You don't necessarily have to be able to comprehend every minute detail.
Right.
But I think that the more relatable the circumstances are to life, the stronger the attachment to the circumstances is. And that's to say that, you can have space Jesus with lightsabers out in a planet far, far away, but at the end of the day, that's still a hero story, a hero journey that everybody can sort of inherently relate to. So I think that everything to do with the Ellimist in this series, I can now confidently sort of say is not my favorite aspect of it.
Sure.
I'm always interested when it comes up, because it means that something drastic is going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I ask for in the series. I prefer this series when it leans deeper into its more grounded material. And I think that all being said, the fortunate thing that this plot can give us is it brings us to a place where we get good circumstances out of it, or we get something exciting out of it, right? Like the way this book ends, the possibilities that it leaves open are encouraging and is a place I want to explore, and is something that I'm really interested in moving forward. It's a pretty lofty swing for the series to like sort of take this drastic shift. And I think that's true of all of the Ellimist things that we've seen.
Yeah.
They've all been similar to this. They've all been like
game
I don't really,
changers.
I don't like how they got there, but I like that they got there, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't love the journey of like using this ethereal character who's just mysterious, and that's their one real personality trait, but I love where we end up every time. So yeah, I guess that's my general thoughts. I don't know how I feel about the A plot of the book, really. I think that it's just I'm not going to say that the A plot is filler, because I think that's doing it a disservice. It was interesting the whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
But it definitely is not, at least in my mind, majorly consequential in the same way that the Tobias story beneath it is. So, I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. The first third, I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is interesting. We've got this. And then the second third, I was like, okay, I'll kind of go with it. A couple points here and there.
Right.
I was like, I probably wouldn't have done that. I think that's kind of dumb, but okay. They're kids, whatever. And then the last third, I was like, you know what? Okay, I will accept this. This works. You know, like I was like, all right, I'm in. You know,
Sure.
except for the very little bit at the end, which I was just like, again, Deus Ex Ellimist.
A little confused how we got to the
Yes, how we got
very,
here.
the very last chapter of this book.
Yes.
Is, I was like, wait, what?
What?
That's different.
What? What?
Which I guess they could change, but I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it when we get to it.
Yeah, but I did like that we are finally coming back to a Tobias book 10 books later after his first book. And I mean, I don't know if this was purposeful or not, but our isolation from getting into Tobias's head, I think kind of reflects in this book his isolation from his friends. You know, they don't know what's going on in his head, what he's thinking, how he's feeling. Not really.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the human way to communicate anymore now. It's just thoughts. So if K.A. Applegate and Michael Grant did that on purpose, I'm like, wow, that's a really great idea. So I hope we're going to have more books of him in the future. I did like the angst. I felt like it was very appropriate for a child of his age to be going through and feeling like the way that he is throughout the book. I didn't feel like it was too over the top. I didn't feel like it was unrealistic. I really appreciated that. Yeah, I think overall I'd give the book like, I don't know, maybe like a 6 out of 10. I didn't like love it, but I didn't hate it either. I feel like it was just kind of middle of the road, a few interesting things here and there, but overall I was like, all right, okay, cool. So on to the next one.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's definitely one of those books that I think is majorly consequential for the series. It's not the one that I'm going to be the most excited to revisit, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the mood. I will also say, though, fortunately, so I read it today, and I think how appropriate, because it's today, just to paint the picture for the people out there, if they really care.
yeah. Close your eyes, people.
It's really like moody out, and it's like kind of cloudy, and it's a little bit chilly. And it's like fall has just finally crept in, and so it's like
You
the
can feel the
perfect
crisp
day.
air.
Yeah, it's a perfect day for a little blanket on your nice little sofa chair. You know, just cozying up, and then reading this angsty as hell book about this this teenage boy who just yearns to be a teenager again, but he's stuck as a bird. And I'm like, yeah, this is me today, you know?
He's just going through it, Gianni.
Art
like
reflects life, guys. Art reflects life.
Also, I feel like even though his human life was not like the most fun, and even though he was still so isolated from almost everybody as a human, he still wants to go back to being a human. And I think that says a lot for how lonely he is as a hawk, like yearning for that human connection again, which is devastating. Our poor boy.
Yeah. Don't you
Our
want to
buddy.
just... Don't you, I mean, but like, who among us, right? When we see this absolute supermodel who's one of our friends who maybe wants to also give us a smooch, who among us wouldn't also be like, oh, too bad I'm a bird, you know?
Oh man, I'm a bird.
Dang.
Too bad I'm not a boy.
If only I could kiss you, but too bad I'm a bird. Like, we all are like that. It's in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, just email us if you ever feel like just a bird. Just a bird. Tell us about your experiences.
There'd be nothing better for me than for all of the email responses to this show to just start signing off and be like, just a bird, Sean.
Just a sad bird.
That's our MO right there.
Oh, I love that. I love that. All right, so should we get into this one?
Yar.
Yeah. So Tobias flying around, just living his hawk life, is he not?
So the book opens up, and I quite liked how it opened, because it didn't put the pressure on Applegate and Co. to create any sort of
scene.
Yeah, like we beat this horse to death. But every book opening with, this sort of like procedural element of creating this
Save this
complete
animal.
one-off, like the rats in the maze or whatever. Some sort of scene, right, to really like throw the audience or throw the reader into the action. And I like that this one just didn't do that. It was just Tobias. He's flying around. We're really just getting a slice of his everyday life, and he's seeing all of his friends, and then him just describing his perspective and what he sees of these people, which is a perspective that we haven't had in a while. And so even though all of the characteristics are sort of par for the course, like he sees Jake and he's like, Jake is nodding off in class, but that's our leader right there. Give me a break.
Slacker.
He's a dud. He doesn't have a single plan this whole book.
How do you expect to save the world if you're falling asleep in class?
Yeah.
How?
Wake up.
How?
Wake up, bud.
Yeah.
Wake up, bud.
Yeah.
But, and I know that this one is not necessarily new, but I loved, as a romantic myself, I loved that when he sees Rachel, he makes some comment about, you ever just seen somebody who just looks like they have a spotlight on them at all times?
Yeah, so cute.
And I was like, literally, make her kiss you on your bird mouth right now, or I riot.
Gianni, did you feel like you had a little spotlight on yourself in that moment?
No, I felt like that's how I feel every time I see a person of the opposite sex on the subway. I'm like, wait, did we catch eyes? Are we in love right now?
Are we in love right now? And then you're like, oh, no, okay, I'll just stay over here and not look at you anymore. Sorry for making eye contact. Please don't hurt me.
I literally, I was talking about this with my friend Grant one time, and we were... I was like, can I confess something to you? He's like, of course. And I was like, I think, and I know that this is irrational, but I think that if someone of the opposite sex catches my eye, that we're in love and destined to be together.
Especially on the train in New York. Actually, you want to know something? So recently I had my birthday party and Gianni was invited with a few other friends. My married couple friend, Margaret and Paul, they actually met on the train. And they started...
No, see?
Yeah, they started talking, and then they went on dates, and now they're married, so,
This is what I'm saying. You know what's also funny about it, though, is that I would never in a million years ever approach somebody.
I know you wouldn't.
That's the other thing.
I
would never.
Actually, well...
I would never.
Okay, one time I did slide a note to a guy on his knee.
Stop it. No, you did not.
I did, because I was like 22. And I was
that is so bold.
I can do that. I'm an adult. I'm an independent adult, and I think he's super
Did it work?
cute. I slid him this tiny piece of paper that said, "Hi, I think you're really cute. Here's my number if you ever want to talk." And then I immediately got off at the next stop. So like it was like doors open. I slid him the note. I got off at the station, and then I see him like open it, reading it, and then I was just like, and then he didn't contact me. And then, like, 5 years later, I get a text from someone saying, "Hey, do I know you?" And I was like, "I don't know. Like, who are you?" And he's like, "I don't know. I had your number in my desk. It looks like it was ripped off a note." And I was like, oh, I think it's the guy I slipped that note to. Because it was a tiny piece of paper. And I think it was him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to hang out at this bar if you're nearby." And I was like, "Oh, maybe." And because I was a little bit older, I was like, maybe not the best idea. So I didn't go.
You didn't go?
No, I didn't go, because I was like too nervous. I didn't know anything about this guy, I didn't know.
Oh,
and I had no self-confidence, so,
Now I'll never know.
We'll never know. Unless he reaches out to me again and is like, "Do I know you again?" And I was like, I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that guy that I slipped his number to, because I never did that.
He kept that note
in his desk drawer.
For 5 years.
He did. And he ripped off the note and he kept the number.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, amazing. Anyway.
That's romance right there.
Tobias would never.
Oh, yeah, right. We were talking about a book.
Tobias would never. Tobias is too sad.
Yeah. So he's wandering around. He talks about all his friends, and then him and Rachel, they're chitter chattering, right? They're like, ooh, it's like a little bit flirty, maybe a little bit, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. Who's to say? But they're like, let's go fly around. Like, do you want to fly around? For a little bit? And she's like, yeah. And so then they're flying around. They're like, wow. And then they soar on over to they mosey on over to a little spot somewhere. And actually, important to note, because I almost forgot to say this, they are flying around for a while and then kind of come above the tree line, and Rachel's like, isn't this the same place that we just were?
Yeah.
And Tobias is like, that's not right. That's a little weird. Pin in that.
Also,
because foreshadowing. We'll come back to that later.
Rachel had an award that Tobias saw, and he's like, that's weird that she
point.
didn't tell me that she got that award.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And he does say something about it.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, congratulations on your award. And she's like, how'd you know about that? And he's like, well, these Hawkeyes see everything. This I'm paraphrasing. These aren't exact quotes. Well, these Hawkeyes see everything. And then she's like, yeah, well, I just didn't want to make you feel left out and not come to because you're a bird. And then he's like, yeah, I'm just a bird.
Just a bird.
Yeah.
I could never.
And then he's like, maybe we could bird kid. He doesn't say that. But
maybe we could hold talons in hand just for a minute.
Ooh.
Just for a minute.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it.
So they're flying, and then they get to a weird spot, and they don't kiss as birds because they got weirded out by this weird spot, and they see a tree just moving along like it's on a Roomba.
Yeah.
Just across the forest floor.
It's a little weird.
And what's below the tree, Gianni?
Oh,
what's in there?
Nothing that crazy. Just a hork-bajir is there.
Wow, it's a giant hole filled with hork-bajir, but like there's two of them that come out.
Yeah.
What do? They hug?
Yeah, and then they run away because there's a big alarm that happens, and then all of a sudden all these humans, who they're very sure immediately are controllers, come out with like all these guns, and they're chasing after the hork-bajir. Now, hork-bajir are very fast, surprisingly fast. But the human beings start getting on like motorbikes and stuff, and they start zooming off after them, and meanwhile, Rachel and Tobias are like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. We're seeing a lot happening right now, but we've also never seen, like, two hork-bajir just out in the open in the middle of broad daylight. So something is up.
What the heck is that about?
So they decide to investigate. So they're following around, and they end up, basically, as a leap of faith, just outright communicating with these hork-bajir. They're, like, trying to tell them where to go. They're like, you guys gotta, go left or whatever, dodge all this thing. Whole chase sequence is happening as they're navigating through all these different woods and stuff. And then at a certain point, Tobias has to get down and like actually show them where to go because their language is pretty primitive. We find out more about that later, but their language is pretty primitive. They're not really sure they understand a lot of what Tobias is saying. So he's like, follow the bird. And then he gets on down there, and he's doing all this. And they're following the bird. And then they end up getting away. But they also, the hork-bajir, they get split from each other. One of the hork-bajir gets split from the other hork-bajir. And when it happens, the male hork-bajir starts calling out after the other hork-bajir, who we find out is a female hork-bajir.
Yeah,
and
she
he
gets
basically
hit
says,
by a vehicle, and he's like, my wife. And
yeah, he
like,
literally he sounds just like Borat in my head. Too.
My wife.
He goes, my wife. Yeah.
And they're like, oh my god, you have a wife? What?
They're like, what the hell is going on? So they usher this guy into a cave. Then they're all talking together. They're catching everybody else up on what happened. And everybody's like, what do you mean the hork-bajir have husband and wife things? And they were like,
what the hell?
I don't know. Like, this is what happened. This is all I know. Not even Axe is really familiar with this whole thing.
So they're like, stay in this cave, free surviving hork-bajir. We'll figure out what to do with your wife later on, and we're gonna regroup and we'll meet you back here. Just stay in the cave and hide.
Yeah.
So then the gang meets up at Cassie's barn. They're all chatting about like what to do. How does he have a wife? I mean, it's clear he's not a controller. Like, what do we do? Should we help them? And they all kind of agree, like we need to help these two hork-bajir out. So Tobias says, I'll go meet with him. Axe, you can come with me too. And like, so that way they'll see you're an Andalite. Like, they know about you guys. Okay, cool. Let's go try to do a little meetup with our friend. And they learn, what's his name, Gianni? He has a name.
It's Jara Hemi. Is that right?
Yeah.
So Jara Hemi, and he talks in like kind of like a broken, stilted sort of pattern of speech,
kind of
but
like
kind of like Borat.
a little like Borat. What like
so just picture Borat. That's what this guy is.
Yeah.
Exactly like
you
that.
could exactly. He's from Kazakhstan, but in space.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yak smash.
Yak smash. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dobby. He kind of talks like Dobby.
Oh yeah, he's a little Dobby-ish.
He's a little Dobby-ish.
He talks in the third person too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like. Yeah, he's like, me, Jara, Hami. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's Jar
Jar
Binks.
You're mixing him. Oh, no. No, I hate Jara Hami.
No. You love it. This is great. So Jara, yeah. So there's a couple of things that happen in this like next scene that are like a little strange, but like chief among them, Axe is like a little suspicious of this guy. This guy's a little suspicious of Axe. They kind of have like beef, and Axe is like
a little bit.
Axe ends up saying later at some other point in the book where he's like I don't know what they would have against us. Like we tried to help the Hork-Bajir. Like yeah, we failed, but we definitely tried to help him. And it's like with the context that we have from the previous book, we know exactly why the Hork-Bajir fucking don't trust these guys because hey, guess what? The people who tried to help them, they unleashed COVID-19 on steroids to these people to try to eradicate the Yeerks. So it's not like you guys all have the best interests at heart for us, but of course Axe doesn't know all of that.
No.
So just
if
kind
you
of
want to hear about all of that, you can just check out our previous episode at morphinbuddies.com, wherever you get your podcast.
Right. So
that's the Andalite Chronicles. Yep.
So Axe is like, you're not a Yeerk, prove it. And this psychopath
I love this part. I was like, holy shit, he's metal as fuck.
Dude, he cuts into his skull.
Yeah,
and
he's
then
like, look.
pries it open and is like, look, no Yeerk in there. And they're like, holy shit, this dude's fucking hardcore.
Well, Axe was just like, yes, I see. And Tobias was like, what the hell?
Freaking
yeah, there's no
psycho.
Yeerk in there. But like, Axe was just like, yes, no Yeerk. Okay, like, it's normal. And then he presses the pieces of his head back together and squeezes them, and they form a scab like almost immediately. And I was like, bro.
Yeah, so we get a little more context for it in this book, but this is something I think was like mentioned maybe in passing in a previous book, but pretty much outright states in this one, Hork-Bajir are like very, very good at healing themselves. They can heal themselves very, very quickly. So that's going to become an important thing later. But Jara Hami says, what about my wife? My wife. We gotta get her back or whatever. We don't know where she went. They were like, I don't know. We were split up, but they get interrupted in this conversation because a bunch of Yeerks and controllers and stuff are all rushing through the woods to try to find him right now. Cassie basically gives them a 5-minute warning. They got to figure out what are we gonna do. They end up coming up with a plan. The plan is essentially that someone takes the morph of Jara Hami and uses it to try to create a diversion so that the actual Jara Hami can escape.
Yes.
Rachel ends up volunteering for it.
Yes.
She takes the morph, but first they have Jara Hami turn around because they don't want this guy to know that they're actually humans, and so
correct.
She
Which
takes
is smart.
Takes the morph. They have some weird little ritual where they're like,
oh yeah, they were fighting for dominance.
Yeah, it was really weird. Fighting for dominance with yourself, which is the story of my life, I guess.
Yeah, and then Tobias was just like, "Yo, Rachel, snap out of it." And Rachel's like, "Oh, right, sorry, I didn't. I'll just go. I'll just go now."
Yeah. So they all split up, and this one gets weird pretty quickly too, because once again Tobias has one of those like, I don't know, fugue states or moments where he thinks he's somewhere and then he actually somewhere else, and then all of a sudden he's looking and there's Hork-Bajir who's being held basically at gunpoint by a bunch of controllers, and I believe Visser 3, if I'm not mistaken, is among them. And this ends up being Jara Hami's wife, not actually Rachel as Jara Hami or Jara Hami themselves. And so Tobias springs into action, basically rushes at these guys, creates the little attack pattern just to kind of get these guys all distracted and disoriented and whatever.
Yeah.
And is able to get what we find out their name later. Forgive the pronunciation of this one. Ket Halpak?
I think that's right. But you forget this wonderful moment. Tobias dives down and rips the Visser's stalk eyes apart.
Baller.
He
Baller
uses
move.
talons and he's like rip. And in my head, my first thought is okay, is that permanent or is he going to fix that by morphing and then morphing back? Don't know. We weren't really given a whole lot of information for that. But it's just an interesting thing that happened, I think, that Tobias had the balls to be like, fuck you and your eyesight.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, with what we know about the morphing and the DNA and whatnot, I'm sure that they're probably fine,
heal.
but cool as hell, though.
Yeah, he's got balls.
So then they're trying to basically figure out a place where to hide these guys. He ends up coming up with this idea for some sort of valley of some sort.
Yeah, Tobias has this idea of a valley in the mountains that they can hide in and they won't be disturbed because nobody goes there. And then everyone's like, okay, cool. I mean, if you know where it is, then great, you can lead them there. And Tobias is like, actually, I have no idea where it is. I don't know how that image got in my head. I don't know. I guess I'll just try to find it.
Yeah, and he ends up saying to Axe, sometime hereafter, he's like, hey, do you ever get this thing where you have information in your head and you have no idea how it got there? And Axe is like, no, that's weird.
He's like, look, Andalites have all the information that ever existed, so no, I don't know anything new.
He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's at that point that Tobias gets another vision that ends up being a bunch of taxons basically being used as bloodhounds, sniffing out the scent of the Hork-Bajir. And he tells Axe about this, and Axe is like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about with the whole vision thing, but we got to figure that out, because, taxon trackers, that's a thing.
Yeah,
that's
we got to get them out of here if we want to keep them safe. And Tobias speaks to Jara, and he's like, look, I have this vision, I don't know, it's weird. And Jara's like, oh, I had a guide too. I had somebody put images in my head and you were involved in those, so that's weird. And Tobias is like, right, okay,
so
weird.
he's like that's very strange. Tobias then kind of is like, okay, what's going on? And it's at that point that he's snapped into some other sort of ethereal astral plane, however you want to sort of describe it, and he is talking to the Ellimist, but the Ellimist is not in the same form that the Ellimist was in the previous time we spoke to the Ellimist. This is the Ellimist in some sort of weird bird-like form, but not quite bird, but kind of bird. And the Ellimist is like, I wanted to appear to you as something that you would identify with. And Tobias is like, what?
He's like, I'm a boy, but I'm also a bird. I don't really care either way. You could just be yourself. I mean, I don't give a shit at this point.
Be fucking normal.
Can you just stop fucking with me, please? I'm so sad.
And so they have this really interesting conversation where he's like, what are you doing with showing us these visions or whatever? And the Ellimist is like, well, we don't interfere in people's lives, but I did want to save these Hork-Bajir. And
we chose you.
Tobias is like, okay, well, if we're going to save the Hork-Bajir, I'll take them to this valley, but I want to be paid. And the Ellimist is like, what do you want? And Tobias is like, you know what I want. And the Ellimist is like, I do, but is that really what you want? Are you going to be happy if you get it? And then he snaps back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
Mom spaghetti.
And then he's like, all right, guys, spoke to the big man. Let's get on moving.
So they start trekking with these Hork-Bajir in the middle of the night. Tobias is like, yo, well, I will start leading them. You guys can join us along the way, fight off the Taxons and controllers and all that. And there was a moment that I thought was so cute where Tobias is like, hey, are you guys hungry? Because I'm kind of hungry. And they're like, yeah. And so they have this nice little conversation about the two Hork-Bajir are like, oh yeah, these blades we use for bark on the tree that's close to the ground, and this blade we use for bark that's high up, and then these blades we use for this tree bark. And Tobias was like, oh, you just use it for scraping off tree bark? That's what you eat? And they're like, yeah, we don't have any enemies, we don't find anybody, we're just chill. And Tobias was like, oh no, so the Yeerks like made you killing machines, it's not your fault. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And so
yeah, whatever.
and it was funny because they were talking about the types of trees that they eat on their planet. And Tobias is like, oh, okay, well, I hope you like these trees. And and then he could tell that they thought he was disappointed with the trees they had to offer on Earth. So they look at him and they're like, Earth tree good?
Yeah, no,
It's
don't,
good.
be
Earth
upset,
tree
buddy.
good. And I thought that was so cute. I was like, oh my god.
It was,
Tobias
and
was
it's even cuter too, because then Tobias is like, all right, well, I gotta go eat myself, and they're like, our food, your food, and he's like,
they're like, here's some bark for you, and he's like, oh,
and he's
I don't
like,
eat bark.
Thank you so much, but no. And so he ends up going after. He's like talking about how he can basically almost see the mice and the burrows in the ground, and he goes after one of them, and then a bobcat ends up swiping at him, and then
Bobcat.
he ends up having a standoff with the bobcat where he has to use his human thinking in order to basically try to figure out how to survive this situation. And it's at that moment that he's actually saved by a Deus Ex taxon, which eats the bobcat whole.
Which I was like, how? How does the Taxon grab a bobcat without being scratched by his claws and just swallowing whole?
Don't know. Didn't like it.
Didn't like it either. I was like, okay, nope.
But he's like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah, so Tobias flies up into the air. He sees the entire army coming after the Hork-Bajir, and he's like, all right, we got to get you guys moving faster. The people are coming. The whole gang meets up with the Hork-Bajir, and then they make the brilliant decision to demorph in front of them, which I'm like, no.
Why?
Stop doing that.
What did I say a couple of books ago where I was like, this is now becoming the worst kept secret? It's like Sam Raimi's, who is Spider-Man? I don't know. Every fucking person who knows this guy knows who he is. But yeah, it's the same thing where it's like, yep, here's two more.
It's like just the amount of risk of these Hork-Bajir getting captured with how brazen the Yeerk army is and the controllers. Like, no, don't do. I don't care how like connected you feel with them. There was no reason to reveal this to them. There really wasn't. They can hide behind a bush and demorph. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there was no reason for this, and they could be like, they're not the smartest creatures. They could say, oh, we don't like being naked in front of you. We're not comfortable. So you have to turn around and put your face in a bush, and we'll demorph over here where you can't see us. Like,
or just ask them to turn around. Like, you don't even have to give a reason. Like, I mean, you didn't before, so why do they have to give them a reason?
And I don't think
now?
that they would question it either. They'd be like, okay, turn around, eat more bark. Like, terrible.
At a certain point
decision.
too, and I don't know when this conversation happens, but it is just I guess worth mentioning that I think it's Rachel who says, oh hey, Axe was talking about maybe figuring out who is giving you the images, and Tobias is like, no, I figured it out, it's the Ellimist. And she's like, oh yeah, that's what Axe thought actually. And she said like, hey, be careful, because the Ellimist is Axe says the Ellimist can be a bit of a trickster sometimes.
Yeah, he's tricky.
Now, very curious how Axe knows that.
Yeah.
But we'll circle back to that, I guess, in another book.
Yeah, because I don't think, based on what we know of the Ellimist, that they are tricky at all.
Yeah, the only thing we know that's, like, I guess a little tricky is, like, what happened in the last book, which, the Analyte Chronicles, which was something that Axe shouldn't have any knowledge of, right?
Yeah.
Question mark, question mark, question mark?
I mean, it could be, like, in the lore that they're, like, tricksters. Like leprechauns are tricksters or shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, it could
Thinking
be lore.
Thinking of the Ellimist as just a little leprechaun is so funny.
That would be amazing.
But Tobias outright tells her that, yeah, you said I could be human again.
Yeah. And I read that and I was like... Yeah.
Which is an interesting logic leap because he didn't.
He didn't. You are just like a child. You didn't listen to what was told to you.
Yeah, so I actually have the text here, Tobias, and not once.
No, the fuck it didn't.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so Axe is not happy that they revealed their secret to the Hork-Bajir, and they're like, yeah, okay, it might be the Ellimist, and Rachel's like, it'd be really nice if you could be human again, that'd be sick as fuck. And Tobias is like, okay, can you kiss my bird mouth? No, don't kiss my bird mouth. Stupid Tobias. And so then they start leading the Hork-Bajir back up the mountain. Tobias is flying, and he gets sucked in by the wind created from a helicopter, which is crazy. And he feels his wing breaking and hearing it snap, and he falls down to the ground. And then a raccoon comes to get him, to eat him.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Life is looking bleak, and then all of the sudden, what do you know? Mr. Tobias morphs. He acquires the raccoon, and he morphs into the raccoon.
What? Because the Ellimist is like, hey, why don't you do like what you wanted to do and acquire the raccoon? And Tobias is like, what? And the Ellimist is like, just acquire the raccoon. Just acquire the raccoon and do what you will with that right now. Would be a good time since you're about to drown. And Tobias is like, all right, I guess. So he grips his talon on the little raccoon, and then he starts morphing into the raccoon. And he's like, hey, cool, I can morph again. And then he's like, wait, I'm not a boy.
Yeah,
and he's so
very upset about this. And the Ellimist is like, tee, I'm a leprechaun.
Tee.
Paraphrasing,
yes,
of course.
Yes.
But that's basically the sentiment.
So yes, he scares off the raccoon by doing this. Then he goes back to his hawk form, and he realizes the Yeerks, which I thought this was very clever, are starting a forest fire up the mountain. So it cuts off the gang and where they can go to take these Hork-Bajir. They have to be...
Yeah, I mean, what do they care? I mean, forest fires, whatever. Back in '97, we weren't thinking anything.
Oh, that's true.
Things.
Yeah. Climate change wasn't nearly as dire as it is now.
Yeah.
Great.
You could just start a forest fire anywhere back
and
in
nobody
97.
cared. Nobody cared. So then they all quickly regroup, and they're like, you know what? Jara, Ket, how good can you play dead? And they're like, yes. And they're like, okay, great. So we're gonna have you play dead. So we're gonna morph you. So Rachel and Tobias both morph the two Hork-Bajir, and Tobias almost like tackles a Taxon by himself, like a Taxon scout or something. And Rachel's like, hey, no. We are sneaking out. We're not attacking right now. And Tobias is like, I don't give a fuck. I'm so mad. I just want to destroy everything. And Rachel's like, hey, you're upset because you're not a human boy right now, okay? You got the power to morph. Like, be happy that you have that. This is why you're upset. You're not upset at the Taxons. You're upset because you feel cheated. And that's okay. But you can't take it out on the Taxons right now. We have a plan. We need to stick to the plan. And Tobias is like, oh, okay. Yeah, he kind of like takes that in, which I thought was a really, again, Tobias is one of the most mature people in this group, along with Rachel. I thought that was a really good conversation to be like, hey, like, this is what you're mad at, and you need to be okay with being upset. And there's nothing you can do to change it right now. So let's just focus on what we have to do, and then we'll worry about the rest later. So I really liked that little moment. So yeah, she stopped him. They run. They get trapped. They have to fight. They see this big ravine, and they're like, okay, that's the ravine. We're going to jump off that ravine and make it look like we killed ourselves. So they run, and then Tobias sees Visser 3 standing on the edge of the ravine, and Tobias is like, well, I'm not going to slow down. If I take him with me, he's dead. So let's keep going. And he runs and runs, and Visser 3 realizes he's not going to stop. So he just like sidesteps out of the way. And it's like, fine, if you want to kill yourself, kill yourself. I don't give a shit. Sorry. And he lets Tobias fall off the edge. And then Tobias is caught by a gorilla hand. Now, Gianni, I don't know about you, but I feel like a 7-foot tall Godzilla with blades even for a gorilla, is really hard to catch one-handed when it's dropping from a ravine.
Right.
And then pulling it one-armed into a shallow cave on the edge of the ravine.
Right. But so here's my thought on that as well, right? Kay Appledate doesn't give a shit. She definitely was like, I gotta save this guy somehow.
Gorillas are strong. 600 pounds, they'll be fine.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
So Marco was morphed a gorilla in a cave, and he caught both Rachel and Tobias and pulled them into the cave. And then Ket and Jara are laying down at the bottom of the ravine, where Cassie and Marco are morphed as wolves, pretending to tear at their bodies. And they know, since the Hork-Bajir can heal really quickly, that they can tear off little chunks and make it look like they're eating them. Yeah. And they will be fine. And of course,
and so
they got their permission to do this.
They pass with a natural 20 on their deception check, and Visser 3 is basically talking to all of his minions. He's like, look, this is the grave that they deserve, and blah, 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 and whatever. So they got away with it. And they live to fight another day. So then they finally take the Hork-Bajir into the valley, which Jake actually then assumes that the Ellimist created that valley.
Which is a big logical leap, Jake.
Sure. Why not? Well, if he said it, it must be true.
He's the leader.
The leader.
He knows everything.
So
cool. Okay, they got the valley.
Just to, because it's a nook in my. Now it's just a hooking in my.
Go off,
if it is true, like, if the Ellimist could just create places as safe havens, he couldn't have made it. I don't know, right next to where they escaped from. Like, why? Like, I don't understand. Like,
Gianni,
what are the limits of the Ellimist's power?
There's
never going to be an explanation.
Part of the goal is the journey. Look, you could make the same arguments. The hobbits could have climbed on the eagles and flown to Mount Doom.
No, but they can't, okay, because the Eagles have their own autonomy, and if they would also be persuaded by the power of the ring, number one. Number two, they wouldn't have wanted to expose themselves because there's plenty of Nazgul flying around over there. They would be shot out of the sky in an instant. It's insane to think that the Eagles... If you're listen here, if you're someone who's sincerely thinking that it's a major plot hole in the Lord of the Rings, if you're listening to this podcast and you're sincerely thinking it's a major plot hole in the Lord of the Rings, the giant eagles can just carry them the whole time, I need you to seriously jiggity check yourself before you riggedy wreck yourself, because that is just the most insane. The source material is so explicit in stating like what the eagles are capable of, that they're thinking autonomous creatures who have their own thoughts and morality, and it's ludicrous. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Gianni, there's some snaps for you.
Thank you. I didn't get a goddamn Lord of the Rings tattoo to not talk on this.
Gianni, you get a natural 20 for that. Appreciate
Thank you. No, Family Guy rotted a lot of people's brains, you know?
No, I know that's like the main argument for like people who hate Lord of the Rings. They're like, they could have climbed the eagles. I'm like, no. No, they couldn't. Shut up.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about.
You gotta read a book, brother.
You fucking loser.
Specifically the book that it's based on, you know?
Fucking loser. So anyway, they get to the valley, and the valley's just hanging out there. No eagles in sight. So Tobias he flies back to his little tree hovel, and he's like pouting. He's having a big pout to himself.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not human. I'm really upset. I wanted comfy blankets. I wanted to lay in a bed. I wanted to eat real food again, and I'm really upset. And then all of a sudden, he opens his eyes and he's back in his old bedroom. And oh, what's that? A calendar he had on his wall in his old bedroom. And what's that on the calendar? It's the day before he went to the construction site with Jake and all the rest of them where they got their morphing powers. And
nope.
What's that? It's his human self in his bed. What?
He could, and the human self wakes up
and talks to him.
Yeah, and he's like, you're dreaming. Don't
I hate that. I actually just re-listened to our Predator episode, and I was just like, dude, the whole "it's a dream," like,
hate that shit.
Hate it.
Hate that shit.
And then Tobias is like, "Hey, you're a human boy. I'm a talking hawk. What's up?" And human Tobias is like, "What's going on?" And Hawk Tobias is like, "You're gonna be okay. Just make sure you go with Jake tomorrow." And human Tobias is like, "What?" And Hawk Tobias is like, "Go with Jake and stay with him." And human Tobias is like, "Okay, weird." And then Hawk Tobias reaches out his little talons and grabs his little human arm from the past and acquires his human self. Which I was like, okay. We're just going to leave that there.
Hey, that's weird.
That's very strange. So then he suddenly gets transported back. But I did like this little moment where he's talking to his human self the day before he was going to go to the construction site. And the fact that he said, follow Jake and make sure you stay with Jake and go to the construction site, to me, that says, even though he's so upset about the way that things are right now, he still wouldn't have changed anything. He still wants to encourage himself to go through that construction site and have everything happen exactly the way that it did happen, which to me is like a sign of acceptance and a sign that, like, yeah, he really didn't know what he actually wanted. So I don't really see the Ellimist as like a trickster, because the Ellimist was like, what do you want? He's like, you know what I want. He's like, yeah, but do you know what you want? Like, are you aware of what you really desire? And I don't think Tobias was aware of what he really wanted. I think he wanted a chance to have a human life again, but if he's human again and he doesn't have these powers, he doesn't have a family, he can't really go back to school, he can't get a job, you know, he doesn't have anything. So the fact that the Ellimist gave him this power to morph really did him a favor, and I don't think it was a trick at all, but I think Tobias was too upset and in his own way to see that. Which he does see that at the end of this little reconnection with his past self. And then Rachel's little award ceremony is happening, and Tobias goes in his human morph, and he's like, hey, Rachel. She turns around, she's like, oh, Tobias. And then that's the end of the book. Pretty much.
Yeah, so, I mean, that the very, like, last chapter of the book does a little bit... I don't know. This whole idea that, oh yeah, just take a morph of yourself or whatever, that's the sort of gift I'm giving you so that you could be a part of you as well. I understand what we're getting at, and I think I see it clearly from a writing standpoint of, like, we can't have this guy be a bird forever, you know what I mean? But by the same token, now being back in the same...
Man, those police are really after you, dude.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. This is the story of my life every day.
But
to me, thematically, it seems like it rescinds it a little bit.
Yeah,
it just not drastically. I think it's definitely putting Tobias in a much more interesting place. I just feel like if the idea is you should accept the circumstances of what was given to you because it would be a better alternative than what you had before, then I think that it has to double down on that message and not allow him to be able to rescind it, because I just think thematically, if you then are allowing him to now morph again, you're kind of then saying, okay, well, now we have a whole new set of rules, and you're not really adhering to the exact same theme that you already sort of established with that character growth in that moment. But semantics, I guess, at the end of the day, it's still a powerful thing. And like I said at the start of this podcast, I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I'm more interested now to see whatever the next Tobias book is, and him sort of navigating this journey of being able to be human only 2 hours at a time, kind of thing.
Yeah, so. Really interesting. And it'd be funny if he just morphed human and then went past the 2 hours. He's like, uh-oh, oops, did it again.
Oh no, Ellimist, please help.
Ellimist, could you please maybe, I don't know, make me morph again?
Yeah, but I mean, based on this, the Ellimist could just at any time just be like, yeah, sure.
And take it away.
But he doesn't.
The Ellimist giveth and he taketh away.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't know if this would like make anything like stronger story wise. I kind of wish when Tobias was taken by the raccoon and he's just like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I wish the Ellimist had kind of popped in and just said, hey, remember your human self, and just do that. And then Tobias is like, what? And he's like, just think of your human self. And then he starts morphing into his human body because that's what he was originally. And then when he realizes he can do that, he's like, shit, what else can I do? And just is kind of on this confusing, like, I don't want to tell anybody yet because I'm not entirely sure if I have morphing powers yet, but I can still morph into a human. That kind of takes away the weirdness of him acquiring himself while he's sleeping. And it can kind of focus the scene more on, I wouldn't change anything. Go follow Jake, do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think at the end, I think it shouldn't reveal Tobias to be like fully human to Rachel. I think if we just like on the edge of the frame of the shot, it's like Rachel and she's all dressed up and she has her back to like the camera, and then you just see someone step in and we just see like a little bit of short blonde hair and we hear a voice that sounds like Tobias's voice, and he's like, Rachel, and she turns around and she's just like and then you just see her face shocked, and then we cut to black, and like then like we know for sure, like holy shit, he's human, like where does this go next? I think that would be really exciting. I also would not have them reveal their secret to the Hork-Bajir. Please don't do that. That's dumb. That's a waste of my time. Please don't do that. But I think those would be like the major changes or like ideas I would have in this. What would you do, Gianni?
Yeah, I mean, the only like adaptation thing. Look, take it. I say this every time, but I have to keep reiterating it. And we love all the emails that we get about like the adaptation changes that we suggest, particularly the ones that are like, "Hey, it can't work because X and X and X and whatever." So I mean, obviously, as much as you can, don't spoil those things for us. But I do like it when people at least acknowledge I do like when people say like, "Oh, that's going to be important later. You can't change that."
That's fine. Totally fine.
My biggest change right now is that I think, and I think this backtracks to the other ones as well, I would consider getting the Ellimists out of the series entirely. Yeah. And I think the reason is that I just think it's too powerful as an idea and a concept. You either have to way limit the abilities and make that very clear to the audience, or you have to acknowledge that it's going to just be a major like death knell in people being able to sort of like take this science fiction at face value or in any sense seriously. I think that becomes way harder to do with the End-of-Light Chronicles because of the nature of what they're dealing with in the third act of that book. But I think even as we were talking about with that, the Time Matrix in and of itself is already such a unique MacGuffin that I think that we can maybe work around it. I don't think that's that much of a boon.
I think like with something as dire as like the Time Matrix and you are not living out the life that you are supposed to have, I think that situation could be dire enough for the Ellimist to come in and be like, what are you doing?
Or you could even...
idiot.
You can even make them interchangeable. I would be fine, actually, with the Time Matrix literally just actually being the Ellimist being, like, awokened, and then the Ellimist is able to sort of change something. Like, that could be kind of interesting. I think for this, the way I would work around this is... because it was pre-established that it's a technology that you get that is able to cause you to morph, or in some regard or facet, right? And I think that what I would do would be, in the adaptation of this, to just have one more of those available, right? And the idea being like... we're able to find it in some sense in the A plot. Like maybe even the Yerks have stumbled upon this and they're not sure how it works. and the Hork-Bajir, when they break out, escape
They
with
grab
it.
it.
You know, something to that effect. And then have it be like a discussion with the group themselves where it's like, Tobias, you could have the ability to morph again, but of course your default morph would just be the hawk. And have that be then the sort of like kind of thematic consequence of it. He would never be able to be Tobias again, of course, because he doesn't have the DNA of Tobias anymore, but you could theoretically do something akin to what Axe already does in the taking of the morphs of the other people. So I think that would be probably the way I would write around it. Of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt because...
you know what would be really cute?
Yeah.
If Tobias did the same thing Axe did, where he took DNA from everybody and mixed it all together, and then he and Axe were like twin brothers when they were in their human morphs.
Well, and it would make a lot of sense with the things that we know
because they're
about
uncle
them.
and nephew.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly
That would be
add to
super
that
cute.
kind of lore. I think that would be awesome as well. I mean, look, I'm positive that whenever this episode goes out, that there will be an email that'll be like, no, the Ellimist does come back in the future, so I don't think you could do that.
Sure.
And I'm sure you're right.
I just wish he was less. I just wish he was a little bit less.
Yeah,
He didn't interfere quite as much.
Or it's just his next appearance or their next appearance, whatever the element is, their next appearance just be abundantly clear of like the amount of influence, because this is for an entity that says I cannot interfere. And first, we have no idea why you can't interfere. That's a whole other can of worms. But for an entity that says I cannot interfere, you interfere a lot, brother. And I think that maybe we should really start to like come to grips with why that is.
He's got a lot to say.
But this is a 50 some odd book series. I'm positive it comes back again. Like, I know, I hear you guys typing on the keyboards as we speak. I just think right now, that would be my biggest change. If we're in the writer's room, I would say, hey, I think we need to really think about making this more grounded, more focused, more relatable to people, and saving these circumstances for very special and unique occasions. If we can figure out a way to make these things work without the influence of some benevolent force that we can't comprehend or understand, I would like us to try to do that, make an active effort to try to do that. And I think so far, I think we can. I think the time matrix is maybe the one exception, and I still would rework that. So that would be my big change. Other than that, I agree with you about not showing their human morphs to the Hork-Bajir.
Terrible. Yeah.
And I think that
just make the mountain spot like a mountain spot. It doesn't have to be a secret hidden valley the Ellimist created. It can just be a bushy mountain
the guy's
spot.
He's been a hawk for a long time. I'm sure he's found spots that are hard to get to.
Yeah. You don't have to make it a whole thing.
I think it's possible. I think it's totally doable here. I like them acquiring allies, though, in the fight moving forward. So, that's really encouraging to me, and I hope that when they come back, it'll be in a really interesting way. So, but those are my changes.
All right. Should we look at the next book?
Hell yeah, we should.
I think you're going to love this cover. The Unknown.
I already hate it. Let's see. Okay. The Unknown just makes me think of that. Did you see? It went viral. I think it was maybe last year, but the Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Like
oh my
in
God.
Scotland, that whole thing that was happening.
That whole fiasco.
The villain was the unknown.
And he's it's the unknown, hiding behind a mirror, and it's just like,
all right,
okay.
I'm scrolling down to the image. Here I go. Come on,
we got Cassie morphing into a horse.
Oh my God.
What's wrong with it, Gianni?
What isn't wrong with it? It's not often that every single image in it is cursed in some way. Even her natural stance in the first one is like,
you don't like the
rocked out arms that are like, this weird unnatural angle.
Look how small her arms are compared to her head in the first.
Dude,
just in the first image.
What is going on? Dude, the third image is crazy.
That's classic, baby. I dare you to get that tattooed on your back.
Oh my fucking God, that's crazy.
So we've got Cassie transforming into a brown horse on the cover of this book. The third image, her crew neck turns into a V-neck. Very stylish.
It does. It totally does.
And What's oh god, I just love the face on the third image. Is just, I love it.
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
Gianni, what's the tagline on there?
Never underestimate the power of a morph.
Ooh.
Means nothing to me.
I don't remember either. This is so vague. This book is so vague. What do you think is going to be unknown in the 14th book? Or do you think this is just another pulled it out of the hat titles?
This has got to be a pulled it out of the hat title. I'm willing to. I mean, there's no way, because like the unknown, like what is an unknown at this point? Like there's not a single thing that we really feel like we know a lot about. The unknown could be anything. This is the unknown. I hope it's not a place. That's the one thing I hope. I don't need a new setting. I don't want the unknown to be like they find a hollow Earth. If that's what it is, I don't know, man.
What if they fly to the moon and it's fake, and then the whole moon landing was faked?
I would be more on board with that because that would be hilarious. This book tried to be like,
or flat Earth,
No.
totally real, Gianni.
See, that would be funny to me. Like I would be. That would be enjoyable if the unknown is oh man,
discovery
no,
of flat Earth.
I can't actually. Never mind. No, I can't. The unknown, it has to be a thing or a person in order for me to get on board, because if it's a place, I'm not gonna like it. I just know it. But if it's like a person or something, if the person's going by the end, no, I can't have a new entity either. No, I won't. It has to be a thing. I can't do. If the unknown is another entity, I already have the Ellimist that's like driving me up a wall. Like I can't have another thing. It's got to be an item.
I will tell you, it is not an entity.
Thank God. But you're not saying that it's not Hollow Earth either, which is really.
What if it's both an item and a place?
Oh no.
What if it's both an item and a place, Gianni?
It's gonna be like a key, right? It's gonna be a key to a place.
I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember. I just don't remember, Gianni.
That's what it fucking is.
Gianni,
I know
it's
it.
the key to your heart as the reader. You know, in
my God.
you remember in like Neverending Story where they're like, Bastion, you have to give me a name, and he's like, me? And they're like, yeah, you fucking idiot, give us a name. And he's like, Moonchild. It's like that, maybe.
Oh man.
You're gonna have to.
She's gonna be frolicking around in Hollow Earth. I know it.
As a horse.
As a horse.
Look, Gianni, I can't tell you if you're right or not because I don't really remember. But I did take a glance at the synopses, and I mean, look, I can't go any further than that.
Well, that bodes well. All right. Well, I guess we'll find out.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for hanging out with us on this slightly longer episode of Morphin Buddies. Should you like to email us, where can they email us, Gianni?
www.
No, it's not.
No, I don't remember.
Let me email you at www. I don't know.
www. No, it's morphinbuddies@gmail.com.
That's right.
morphinbuddies at gmail.com.
That's where you can email us with any of your ideas. If you have any musings, if you have any fan fiction you would like to send us, please do. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And Gianni,
we love fan fiction.
And Gianni wants Jake and Cassie to kiss real bad. So maybe, Jake might get his chance with Cassie as a horse.
I just want something to like about Jake, and I think that Cassie would be the thing.
Okay. Cassie's your only hope for Jake. What if Cassie dies?
Then there's nothing. I mean, come on. We all know one person in our life who you're like, the only thing that's good about this person is the person that just randomly chose to tie their cart to this horse. We all have one person in their life, in our lives. Like
well,
that.
I was that person for somebody, so at one point.
Yeah. Exactly. So there you go.
Not to brag, but no. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, if you want to email us, feel free to email us your ideas and thoughts and feelings, and I'll keep an eye out for them. And we'll see
tell
you.
us about that person in your life.
Yeah, tell us about that person in your life. Please don't make us cry. Gianni's too sensitive right now.
No, you can. I don't mind. I'll cry.
Okay.
I
He
cry
likes
over
to cry.
everything.
He loves crying. We are both secretly sad boys at heart. Okay, time to end this. All right, so we are at the end of this episode. If you want to email us, email us. If you don't have to. If you just want to lurk, that's fine too. We appreciate your listen, and we'll see you on the next episode of Morphin' Buddies.